Hello, this is Head to Head on UATV, and I'm Oles Gerjuk. Russia must pay Ukrainian investors $159 million for financial losses resulting from the annexation of Crimea. This judgment was unanimous at the Permanent Court of Arbitration at The Hague. But what does this decision mean to Ukraine, and how much is Russia willing to fulfill the sentence? To talk more about this, we welcome to the studio today Mykhailo Zahorovsky, Head of Projects at Ukrainian Council on Foreign Affairs NGO. Hello, and thank you for joining us today.
Hello, thank you.
So, some critics say that by demanding money for losses in Crimea, Ukraine is basically recognizing the peninsula to be a part of Russia. How could you comment on that?
Actually, I would like to clear up the definition of sanctions for our audience. First of all, is adequate reaction of international community for violating of international law.
Right?
Yes, and it's not mean that Russia pays for annexation of Crimea for particularly for the same Crimea.
So basically, what you say that this statement is absolutely nonsense.
Yes,
that
of course,
Ukraine
yes.
recognizes the peninsula to be a part of Russian Federation. Well, but is this the first judgment that basically puts financial compensation on Russian Federation for the annexation in Crimea and violation of human rights and all the other accusations? Is this the first one?
Yes, it's a historical case, and it's the first time in international law the state is punished for annexation of the part of another country.
So then it means that this is somehow the start of real and threatening court sentences towards Russia. What does it mean to Ukraine now?
For Ukraine, it's been a very good case because we have a carte blanche for further processes and we can get all profit losses.
Mm-hmm. But what was the reaction from Russia?
The reaction was none.
There was no reaction.
Yeah.
But basically, there was a statement by Dmitry Peskov, the spokesperson to Russian president, that they deny all the accusations, and again, they won't be involved in the court.
It's a usual reaction for Russian Federation of any judgments and any reaction of West on annexation of Crimea.
In your opinion, will Russia fulfill these obligations, the sentence?
I suppose it should be.
So they, without any problem, they will pay the money to Ukrainian, to 19 companies?
I think with great problems. Maybe some assets will be arrested. For example, we can manage Nord Stream, and the Nord Stream assets could be frozen. Frozen, sorry.
Okay, but then what do you mean by we could manage Nord Stream?
I mean that
we could confiscate the assets of Nord Stream 2, you mean?
Yes, some assets of its project.
So then it would stop being such a threat for Ukraine if we confiscate it for good, I mean.
No.
No?
No, no.
So what would it mean for Ukraine then? Or this is just going to be a temporary confiscation?
It will be a temporary confiscation and we will waiting for realization the judgment
of the court decision.
Yes.
Okay. Well, what about other cases that Ukraine already filed in different international courts? How successful are we in other cases?
It's a very difficult process actually, and Ukraine has a good position in it, and that historical case shows us that it could be.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to remind you about one sentence. A year ago, the International Court of Justice in The Hague ordered Russia to ensure availability of education in the Ukrainian language in the occupied peninsula in Crimea. But now the only remaining school that was supposed to teach in Ukrainian does not have a single class taught in Ukrainian. What could be done in this case to make Russia fulfill the sentence? Basically, it's not about companies, not about business, not about assets. It's about education.
But we can say that education is a part of human rights,
yeah.
and we can case to human rights international court.
But in this way, what are the possible ways to force Russia to fulfill the sentence? Because we cannot confiscate any assets in this case.
I think we can't force, and United States and the European Union can't force as well. Mm-hmm. But they can expand the sanctions and force Russia to move in that direction.
Mm-hmm. Well, after the recent decision of PCA, there was a lot of discussion about another case in 2016. Oshchet Bank, National Ukrainian Bank, and Naftogaz, Ukraine's gas company, filed different lawsuits against Russia to the PCA with respect to the loss of assets in Crimea. When could we expect first results of these hearings?
I think it could be for the next year, because such a cases is a very long term.
Mm-hmm. And what do you foresee? How positive could these results be?
This historical case shows us that it could be successful for Ukraine, maybe not in not all range of demands, but in the majority of it.
Mm-hmm. What about the breaking of the sea law?
It's a very difficult.
That's another case.
Yes,
that
it's
Ukraine
another case, but
filed, to in the arbitration proceedings against Russia. Yeah.
It's more difficult issue, because sea law is a very difficult law, and there is a lot of cases around the world, and its duration for decades.
For decades.
Yes.
But what is the approximate figure of financial damage that was imposed on Ukraine's economy?
It's very hard to estimate some financial side of this case. Mm-hmm. It's hard to say.
Well, so generally the whole procedure in international courts is very complicated, of course, but what about if we talk about the European Court of Human Rights? We have already 5 cases submitted in the ECHR. So what is the situation right now?
The situation better, because European Court of Human Rights works much faster than the International Court of Justice and the International Arbitration mm-hmm. Court. And I suppose we will have a few decisions this autumn.
A few decisions this autumn. Okay. Are these 5 cases mainly concerned about violation of human rights of Crimean Tatar population in the peninsula, or
both, as well as the Crimean Tatar population and the Ukrainian population as well? And
Ukrainian population as well. Well, at the same process, meanwhile, like 4,226 applications submitted in the ECHR by private persons are linked to the Crimean and Donbass developments, just as part of these 5 cases. Though only 257 were filed against Russia, 908 against both Russia and Ukraine, and almost 3,000 against Ukraine. This, according to the Deputy Minister of Justice, Ivan Lishchina. Could you reveal us what are these cases against Ukraine about?
Some separatist groups in the east of Ukraine and in Crimea have as well feel as well cases against Ukraine that we violating their human rights. For example, rights for language, rights for possibility to make their own quasi-states, and so on.
So basically, all the accusations concern human rights violations.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's going to be interesting to observe the development. Thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you.
That was Mykhailo Zahorovsky, Head of Projects at Ukrainian Council on Foreign Affairs. Thank you for watching Head to Head, and stay tuned with UATV.